Hello everyone, welcome to Sew and Pray Journey channel where I post videos and tutorials of Christian quilts for you. My name is Daria and today I want to show you how to make this beautiful Christian cross patchwork wall hanging. Before we begin, let me say a few things about this pattern. First of all, this is a quick beginner-friendly project that will take you more or less 10 hours from start to finish, including basting, quilting and binding. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that it's a great project for your scrap fabric, for your leftover fabric, and also since we are working with squares, this is a zero waste pattern. Also, if you want to customize it, if you want to make it bigger, it doesn't necessarily have to be a wall hanging. You can make a casket quilt or a burial quilt as well. And best of all, this pattern is free. Since I'm not a professional quilter, I don't believe in charging anyone any fees for my patterns. And why would I? I am just spreading the gospel. So just take a few screenshots, don't worry about any fees, and just watch the video as I explain everything. So I wanted to show you the fabric that I've already selected for my Christian patchwork wall hanging. The idea is to have contrasting fabric, so you need different fabric for background and different fabric for your cross. I have selected different shades of red for my background, and this black fabric is going to be my cross. Since we are working with squares only, the cutting instructions are pretty straightforward. However, pay attention to different colors and sizes of these squares. Okay, so you will need 40 squares that are 10 by 10 centimeters for your background and 11 squares that are 10 by 10 centimeters for your cross. Additionally, you'll need some bigger blocks that we are going to turn into fake hourglass blocks. Therefore, you will need 9 background color squares that are 12 by 12 centimeters, or they can be also slightly bigger, and 3 cross color squares that are 12 by 12 centimeters or slightly bigger. Okay, so now that we have 3 cross squares that are 12 by 12 and 9 background squares that are 12 by 12, we can start making our fake hourglasses blocks. Okay, this is what I mean by a fake hourglass block. In a typical hourglass block, these 2 pieces of fabric would be matching. So you would have matching fabric vertically and matching fabric horizontally. Now this is not what we want. What we want is 3 pieces of fabric that are for the background and 1 piece of fabric for the cross. Okay, and we are going to create 12 blocks like these. To do that, we need to match these now. So I'm going to match this one with this one, of course, the right sides together. This one perhaps with this one. This one with, let's say, I don't know, maybe this one. Okay, maybe this one. Beautiful, beautiful koi fish, huh? Okay, and the rest we have to match as well. So this one goes with this, background with background, background with background, and background with background. Now we are ready to make our HSTs. So in order to do that, we need to draw a line from corner to corner. And we are going to sew on the left side of this fabric. Then we are going to turn around and we're going to use a quarter inch seam to sew on this side as well. And when we do that, once we are done, we are going to have a beautiful HST that will look more or less like this. Okay, so I went ahead and I took all of my blocks, pressed them, then cut them into halves, then opened them and pressed again. This way you end up with 12 half square triangles. Okay, so, or in other words, HSTs. So we need to have 6 with the cross fabric, okay, in this case our black fabric, and 6 with the background fabric only. Okay, so altogether we have 12 HSTs. Now what we need to do is to match one block from the left, one block from the right, and make sure that the seams nest. Now how do we do that? We make sure that one seam goes down and on the other side the seam goes up. Okay, then we take our pencil, we draw a line from top to bottom corner. As you can see, I already drew a line. And again, we are going to sew a quarter of an inch from the line on this side. Then we are going to turn the block around and we are going to sew a quarter of an inch on this side. Okay, once you do that, you should end up with, again, we press, we cut, and we open, and we should have beautiful fake hourglass blocks. Okay, they are going to look like this. Now that I have my 12 hourglass blocks, all I need to do is to trim them to the size of the remaining blocks, which is 10 by 10. And as you probably remember, these blocks were 12 by 12 when we first started, but every time you sewed and you cut, you lost the seam allowance, and this made our blocks smaller. Now, if you were very, very careful with your seam allowance and with your pressing, your blocks are probably already 10 by 10, so there's very little for us to trim. However, if your blocks are slightly too small, then it means you were probably too generous with your seam allowance, or there was something wrong with your pressing. And this also happens to me from time to time, even though I already made hundreds of these blocks. Okay, so for trimming, I like to use my metric system ruler, and I already put some painter's tape along the lines of 10 by 10 because this is the size of my blocks. And another thing that I like to do is to put a dot right in the middle of my block. So if my blocks are 10 by 10, it's very easy to count the middle, which is 5 by 5. Now I'm going to show you why it's so useful. So this is my hourglass block, and I can place it anywhere I want. I don't have to worry about placing it exactly on the 10 by 10 lines. I can put it anywhere I want because I'm going to use my ruler for that. And that's why this red dot is so useful. If you put the red dot right in the middle of your block, and then you use these diagonal lines, these 45-degree angles. So red dot in the middle, and then we align our diagonal lines with the diagonal lines on the ruler, then we can trim our block. Okay, so there's not much to trim here, but let's do it. So we are going to trim on both sides. Then I'm going to turn it around like so. And I'm going to put my ruler again in the middle, making sure that everything is aligning. And you can trim again. There's nothing to trim here. Okay, a little bit here, and a teeny tiny bit here. Alrighty. Once you have finished laying out your fabric, let me ask you, are you happy with your quilt? Do you want to trade any fabric around? Did you make sure the directional fabric is facing the right direction? Do you like the colors that you've selected? If you want to make any changes, now would be a good time. Unfortunately for me, I was too excited to get to the piecing part, and I ignored this very important step. You can see here that I tried to trade some fabric around and that I tested out different borders. However, no matter what I did, I couldn't bring out the black colors of the cross. I think the last straw was when I took a black and white picture and I couldn't see any difference between background and the cross. So even though my wall hanging was already pieced and even though I was ready to put a border on it, I decided to rip almost everything apart and change it. So don't make the same mistakes I did. My advice is look at your laid out fabric in the morning light, look at it in the evening light, take a few photos, including a black and white photo, and ask yourself a question: am I happy with this quilt? If you have followed the pattern, your top should look more or less like what you see on the screen. Whether or not you add a border is entirely up to you, but personally I like to add borders. Then I basted my quilt using a DIY environmentally friendly basting spray, which is something between starch and gravy. As my backing, I chose fabric that I was lucky to find in a second-hand store. And then I quilted my wall hanging using a walking foot and a decorative stitch on my domestic sewing machine. If you think it would be helpful to see how I baste or quilt my quilts, please let me know. Let me know what you think about this finished quilt. Did I do the right thing by changing the entire cross, by ripping all the seams and well, basically changing the look of the whole quilt? The video is certainly not perfect. Also, I was a little disappointed that I didn't get to use this fabric, but I had a choice to make. Either I make a great video and I use this fabric, or I make a quilt that's worthy of God, that praises the Lord. So I think I made the right choice, but I'd like to hear what you think. And if you like this video, please consider sharing it with your quilter friends. It helps the video be seen by more people. And I'd like to see your finished project. It would make me very, very happy if you could send me photos via Instagram. I'm also on X. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. And as always, may God bless you all.